Good morning, everyone. Man, it is a beautiful morning here in Charleston, South Carolina. And so I decided I'd take this opportunity to come out, sit in the backyard. Got the Fancy Feast stove out. Got my little 10-ounce Foster's pot mug. Decided to make myself a cup of coffee out here in the backyard. Thought while I was out here, I would get all the supplies that we need and take you through a little build tutorial on the Fancy Feast stove that I made. So stick around and we'll get into it. But after I enjoy a little bit more of this coffee, because it is just a beautiful day. I need to soak up these rays and enjoy it out here. Hopefully it's nice in your neck of the woods and you can get out and enjoy it. Cheers. Medagliadoro. So today what we're going to build is the Fancy Feast stove, the one that I built the other day. Consists of the inner chamber, which is empty, some holes to allow the heat or whatever denatured alcohol fuel that you're using to seep to the outer chamber, and then filling the void between the inner chamber and the outer chamber is a layer of carbon felt. So to make this stove, some of the supplies that you will need: the Starbucks 6.5 ounce espresso and cream can, empty. If it's not empty, you can go ahead and drink it. That works too. A 7.5 ounce soda can. This one happens to be the cherry Dr. Pepper. And then if you want to make the simmer ring so that you can turn this into a dry baking worthy kit, you will need a 12 ounce soda can. So those are the raw materials that you'll need to make it. You'll also need at least a little bit of carbon felt. And if you don't have a piece that's quite this big, you may be able to use scraps and piece it together. You'll need a Sharpie and something to measure and mark out your cans. You will need a knife to get a hole started for scissors to cut along the lines that you've made. And then you'll need a hole punch. You could do without the hole punch. You could use the scissors and do the cuts, but hole punch makes it real easy. So these are the materials that you need to do this. So let's get started. All right. So the first thing that you're going to have to do is mark your cans to figure out where to cut them. So I used the one that I made just kind of without making any measurements as a guide. And I noticed that the cut goes right through the word naturally above the 100 calories. So what I did was I stacked up some books, magazines, took my Sharpie, set it on top of them, and spun it around where it goes through, my line goes through the naturally. So that's where I'm going to cut it. So to start my cut, I'm going to go a little bit above. So here's the line that I want to cut on. So I'm going to go a little above it and just make a puncture. Then what I'm going to do is roughly, just a real rough, quick cut all the way around, cut that off, okay? Now I'm going to do the fine cut. So I've got my line that I want to follow. So I'm going to shallowly go in, get to the line. Now once I get to the line, I just want to make a nice smooth cut following the line all the way around. And as you get back towards the start, just keep following it, keep following it, keep following it until you have a nice base. So there you can see that the base, it's almost identical to the base that I made before. So that's the start. That's the first piece there. Okay, to make the insert, this middle piece, it's going to take 2 cuts on the Starbucks can, a lower cut and an upper cut, because you don't want the base, you don't want the bottom as part of this. So you can do it 2 ways. You can either mark it, cut it, set it in, and then figure out about 3/8 of an inch up from the base here to make your cut. What I did was, since I already had one made, I used it went here, made the cut, or made the second line. So I'm gonna go ahead and make these cuts same way that I made the cuts here. First I'm just gonna cut it out, then I'm gonna do the fine cuts, and I'll come back and show you what it looks like once I've got that cut out. All right, thanks. So here we go. We have it cut. You see it's a little bit shorter than that. That's because it's going to fit inside. So when it's in there, it's going to stand up. Now right now, it's not fit down in all the way. So one of the things you need to do, so you'll see, here's the difference. With this can that I just cut sitting in here, the gap between the inner and outer wall doesn't match the gap on the finished product. So what you need to do is find the straight line on the can and just cut it straight up. So now you've cut it. Okay, so now you have your inner wall, you have your outer wall. Next, you need to fit in your carbon felt. So what I'm going to do is just kind of roughly mark this. Okay, that's about right there. Cut it. I've already cut it to about the right height, so that it's not going to be a problem. Actually, I'm going to go ahead and cut it down the height just a little bit, just so that it isn't sticking out the top too much. Because if it sticks out the top too much, what it's going to do is, if you've ever watched any of Tinny from Mini Bull Design, or Sam from Batch Stoves, any of their videos, on their remote stoves, a lot of times the wick controls how much heat's there. So if you have the wick flush, it's only going to burn off the top. But if you have the wick sticking up, it's going to burn out the side and the top. It's going to go through more fuel, and it's going to burn hotter. And since that's not what we necessarily want on this one, I'm going to trim it so that it's flush on this one. Next, this would go inside and fit down into the groove. So now you can see that the height is about the same on this one as the previous one. So it's almost where it needs to be. But to get the fuel from this inside chamber out to the outer chamber, you need to make some half moon weep holes so that it will transfer over. Then on the top, I've also got these two half moons to keep the stove from pulsing and keep a nice even flame pattern there. I'm going to cut these out. Now, once you get it fitted to the right size in here, you could take some JB Weld or something and pinch these together with that. I haven't had that be a necessity. You know, because it fits down in the groove and it's pressed against the carbon felt, it seems to hold itself in place really well, and it hasn't been a problem. So there we go. Let's, you know, my coffee's probably getting a little cool. I could use a warm-up. So let's throw down a piece of aluminum so I don't burn my table. Just toss in a little bit of fuel here. Make sure this thing works the way it's supposed to. So I throw the fuel in. It immediately, you can see there's no fuel in there right now. It's because it soaked it all up into the carbon felt. Should light real easy. If I could get the lighter to light. Okay, so I can see the flickering there. So it is lit. I'm going to set my pot on there. I can throw the lid back on there. Keep the So I'm going to heat this up, then we'll come back and we'll make the windscreen, or not the windscreen, the simmer ring for this. Alright, so the best way to make your simmer ring is to mark a nice straight line around the bottom and then cut that one out. So I'll make that cut, come right back. So once you have the bottom cut off of your soda can, what you're going to do is you're going to set your stove next to it, and you're going to mark a spot about 1/8 of an inch lower than the pot stand of your stove. Okay, so I've already made that mark. I'm going to go ahead and make that cut. Once you've made that cut, go ahead and test fit it by setting it next to your pot and then taking a look. Now I can see that I actually need to trim it just a little bit, so I'm going to go ahead, trim it off, and we'll come back. Okay, so I've trimmed this up now and it's about perfect. So what I want to do is make the V notches in there. So 4 of them equally spaced around, and I want them to be about as deep. So you can see on here what I did was I went about as deep as the pot stand is high from the wick. So about 3/8 of an inch. And I'm just gonna rough guess this, make these V's, put them in here. One, go directly across from that one, make my next one. And they don't have to be perfect. Equally space this between those two. And then make the last one. And now you have a nice simmer ring, so you could do some dry baking on this if that was something you desired, or if you had some recipes that called for some simmering and you wanted to use this stove. Now you've got a ring you could do that with. So this is the new stove. Just built this one. There's the simmer ring for it. Here's the one that I built the other day. Very similar, look about the same. Easy to make, as long as you have the carbon felt. That's the only difficult part, is making sure that you have that. But I hope you guys enjoyed this. I'm going to enjoy the rest of my coffee this beautiful morning out here, and maybe get out and do a little bit of hiking today. Got some soccer games with the boys, but maybe we'll go hit a little bit of a trail. So you guys get out there, hit the trails, do it. Get out there and have some fun today. Just do it. Thanks, guys.